The conference room door clicked shut with a sound sharper than a slap. And just like that, the tension cracked. Mira, 29, stood frozen in her second-hand blazer, gripping a report she'd spent 3 nights perfecting. Her knuckles were white, her breath shallow. Across the room sat Landon Voss, VP of Strategy. Tailored suit, Rolex sharp, smile razor-thin. "Let's be honest," he said loudly, flipping the cover page of her proposal without reading it. "You're not leadership material. Not here." A few other managers chuckled behind their hands. "She's got spirit though," muttered one. "That counts for something." Mira stared straight ahead. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not again. Her voice caught in her throat. "With respect, the numbers show." Landon raised a finger. "Don't talk back. Just take the feedback." The silence that followed was the kind that lives in office walls forever. The kind that makes good people shrink into corners and stay there. Outside the room, the elevator pinged open. A man in a plain gray hoodie stepped out, holding a small folder under one arm. Beard trimmed, eyes thoughtful, presence unassuming. He walked slowly past reception. The intern barely looked up. "Sorry, sir, deliveries go through the service entrance." The man smiled. "I'm not here to deliver." Then paused, looking at the nameplate on the wall. "Partners, Strategic Solutions." His eyes narrowed slightly. Just for a second. Keanu Reeves kept walking. He didn't come to make a scene, but he had come to watch. And sometimes that's all it takes. Mira's heels clacked down the hallway like gunshots. She turned sharply into the stairwell, the only place in the building where she could breathe without feeling watched. The door slammed behind her, echoing through the concrete like a verdict. She dropped to the 3rd step, clutching her report like a lifeline no one had bothered to grab. Her lips trembled. She didn't cry. Not yet. But it was coming. Her breath came in short bursts, not from running but from the weight. The weight of trying. Of trying so hard and still being told she wasn't enough. The stairwell door creaked open again. Mira froze. A man stepped in slowly, hands in his pockets. Hoodie. Calm eyes. He didn't look like anyone from strategy, or marketing, or HR. He looked like someone who didn't belong here. Which is why Mira didn't flinch when he spoke. Only tilted her head as he sat one step below her. "I don't mean to intrude," he said. "Just figured some air might be better shared." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "Welcome to Partners. Where careers go to die." He smiled gently. Then asked, "Why did you start doing this in the first place?" Mira blinked. The question hit harder than the humiliation. No one had ever asked her that. Not in interviews. Not in meetings. Not even in casual small talk at the office holiday party. She stared down at her shaking hands. "Because," she began softly, "I wanted to make things better. I wanted to find smarter ways to help small businesses stay open. My dad lost his shop when I was a kid. I thought maybe, if I learned how systems work, I could stop that from happening to someone else." She exhaled. "But that doesn't matter here. Here it's all posturing and politics. I'm a checkmark on their diversity board. A distraction in a thrift store jacket." The man nodded slowly. "I think it still matters," he said. "Even if they can't see it." Mira looked at him, really looked. "Who are you?" He gave a half smile. "Just someone who used to sit on steps like this. Wondering the same thing." And before she could say more, he stood and left. Just like that, leaving only a moment, and a seed, behind. The office felt colder when Mira came back. The lights buzzed softly overhead. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, and the world spun on like nothing had happened in that glass-walled conference room. Like her humiliation was just another line item on someone's daily agenda. Mira walked back to her desk, a modest corner near the copy machine, half shadowed by a flickering LED panel. She sank into her chair and opened her laptop, trying to bury herself in task lists and silence. That's when she noticed it. A small piece of paper, tucked between her keyboard and mousepad. No envelope, no name. Just 4 words, written in clean, purposeful handwriting. "They don't define you." Mira froze. She looked around. No one made eye contact. Had someone seen her leave the stairwell? Had they heard the way Landon spoke to her? Had they cared? She held the note like it might vanish. It wasn't signed, but something about the handwriting felt familiar. Steady. Like the man in the hoodie. Like the way he listened without flinching. Across the room, through the glass pane of the receptionist's alcove, someone new sat flipping through a company brochure. Still in the hoodie. Still unnoticed. Still watching. The receptionist leaned over and whispered, "Sorry, the HR manager will be with you shortly. Are you here for consulting or facilities?" The man smiled. "Neither." In Landon Voss's office, the VP sipped espresso and barked into his phone. "I don't care who flagged her. Kill the pitch. She'll burn out by Q3 anyway." He glanced toward the glass wall just as the man in the hoodie passed outside. They made eye contact. And for the first time in years, Landon blinked first. An email popped into Mira's inbox at 3:17 p.m. Subject: Follow-up, Internal Strategy Debrief. Time: 3:30 p.m. Location: Conference Room 2B. Attendees: No sender listed. No calendar invite. No CCs. Just you. Mira's stomach dropped. Her first thought: they're going to fire me. Her second: good. Maybe I'll finally breathe again. She stood slowly, smoothed her blazer, and walked past rows of coworkers pretending not to look. As she reached the glass door of 2B, she saw a shadow shift inside. She opened the door and stopped cold. He was already in the room. Keanu Reeves. Still in the hoodie. Still without a badge. Still sitting at the table like he'd always belonged. "Have a seat," he said gently, gesturing to the chair across from him. Mira sat. She didn't ask what was happening. She just waited. Because somehow, she knew this moment was different. Keanu reached into a folder, her folder, the proposal she'd written. It was marked up in red, but not slashed. Highlighted. Annotated. Circled with notes like, "This section sings. Add supporting data. This insight is solid. Keep this. It's human." He looked up. "You built something strong," he said. "Not perfect, but powerful." Mira's voice was quiet. "I thought I got it all wrong." "You got them wrong," Keanu said. "Not yourself." She blinked fast. "Who are you?" He gave a small smile. Someone with a voice they still listened to. At least enough to get in the door. Before she could respond, the door opened again. Mr. Carruthers, the company's founder, walked in. Older. Expensive. But quieter than expected. Behind him? Landon Voss. Tight-lipped. Silent. Carruthers looked at Mira. "I understand there was a presentation this morning," he said calmly. "But I'd like to hear it again. From you." Mira's eyes widened. Keanu leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "Go ahead," he said. And in that moment, Mira realized something no one had ever told her. She didn't need to speak louder. She just needed to be heard. Mira stood at the head of the conference table. Same report. Same ideas. Same data points she'd laid out that morning. But everything felt different. Not because the paper had changed, but because she had. Across from her, Mr. Carruthers listened intently, hands folded under his chin. Next to him, Landon Voss sat still, his jaw tight. He didn't interrupt. Not this time. Keanu sat to the side. Silent. Watching. Not rescuing. Not leading. Just present. Mira cleared her throat and began. "Small businesses make up 44% of the national GDP, she said, steady. But in this building, they're barely a footnote." She moved through slides and bullet points, but with every word, she peeled off the fear that once weighed down her voice. This strategy isn't about sympathy. It's about scalability, retention, long-term relevance. They're not charity, they're our future clients. Landon shifted. "With all due respect." Carruthers raised a hand without looking at him. "Let her finish." Mira took a breath. Then, she told the story of her father's shop. Not for pity. For context. "For people like my dad, the numbers never saved him," she said. "But maybe the people behind them still can." The room was silent. A heavy, listening silence. Then Carruthers nodded slowly. "You built this?" Mira nodded. No senior oversight? No. He turned to Landon. You rejected this? Landon tried to speak. It lacked polish, sir. Carruthers cut him off. It lacked ego. Which may be exactly why it works. Keanu smiled faintly. And Mira exhaled. She didn't just survive the room. She owned it. Carruthers tapped his fingers once on the table. The tension in the room was a held breath. Then calmly, I'd like to implement this initiative. Immediately. Landon jolted. With all due respect, sir, she's a junior strategist. She's not cleared for implementation. Carruthers didn't even turn to him. She is now. Mira's eyes widened. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Carruthers looked her dead in the eye. You've shown more clarity, empathy, and precision than half the team upstairs. I want you to lead a pilot team for this strategy. Build the client pipeline. You'll report directly to me. Landon's voice cracked, the calm cracking at the edges. This sets a terrible precedence. Carruthers turned. Only if you think recognizing talent is a threat. Landon opened his mouth, then closed it. Because what do you say when the rug you've stood on for a decade is gone? Keanu finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but like always it cut through. I think what you're seeing, he said to Carruthers, is what happens when someone isn't busy trying to be impressive. They're just trying to be honest. Carruthers nodded. The most underutilized currency in this building. He stood, then looked to Mira. You start Monday. She blinked. Yes, sir. As Carruthers walked out, Landon stared down at the desk, his voice suddenly small. Mira. She paused. Waited. But he didn't finish. Because for the first time in his career, he had nothing to say. Keanu stood beside her now. You didn't need me, he said. You just needed space. Mira looked at him, her voice steady now. You gave it anyway. He nodded. Sometimes that's all we need. Monday morning. Mira stepped out of the elevator on the 18th floor, a floor she'd only visited once, and even then, by mistake. Now her name was on the project brief. Mira Das, Strategic Lead, Local Market Initiative. She carried no entourage. No performance. Just her laptop and her story. And somehow, that was enough. Her new workspace wasn't flashy, a corner conference room repurposed into a war room of whiteboards and sticky notes. But it was hers. She had full authority to build her own team. No approvals. No gatekeepers. Just vision. She posted the first internal opening herself. Seeking collaborators for a new community-centric strategy. Must care about people, not just numbers. Title doesn't matter. Integrity does. By noon, she had 17 applications. But one stopped her cold. Name, Jacob Tran. Position, Data Entry Clerk. Note, I don't have client experience. But I read your report. It felt like someone finally spoke human in a spreadsheet. I'd love to help if you'll teach me. She remembered him. Quite polite. The guy everyone asked to fix the printer. The one no one invited to meetings. Mira smiled. And wrote back. Let's build something real. Start tomorrow. Down in records, Jacob stared at the screen, stunned. He turned to the wall of stacked boxes and half-eaten donuts. And whispered. She saw me. In an office built on arrogance, two people were about to rebuild something new, on respect. And somewhere in a city cafe, Keanu Reeves sipped his coffee and read the team announcement from his phone. No response. Just a soft smile. Because the best leaders don't just rise. They lift. 9 a.m. The meeting invite was clear. Quarterly leadership sync. Mandatory attendance. But Mira's name was not on the list. Even though she now led one of the company's most promising new initiatives. Even though her pilot project was already outperforming projections. Still, no seat at the table. She walked up to the glass-walled conference room anyway. Held a folder with charts Jacob had helped her finalize. Facts. Proof. Vision. But as she reached the door, Landon stepped out, blocking her path. This one C-level only, he said smoothly. You can send me your notes. I'll speak on your behalf. Mira met his gaze. Steady. No, thank you. He smirked. Suit yourself. She turned to leave. And that's when the elevator chimed. Soft steps. A shadow across the polished floor. Then a voice, familiar, grounded. Actually, I invited her. Heads turned. And Keanu Reeves stepped into the room. No name tag. No title. Just presence. Landon scoffed, forcing a laugh. Is this a prank? What are you even doing here? Carruthers, already seated at the table, looked up from his coffee. He's my advisor. That wiped the smirk off Landon's face. Keanu turned to Mira, gestured toward the table. There's a seat open, he said. If you want it. She stepped in, chin high, folder in hand. Past Landon. Passed out. Past everything she'd once thought she needed permission for. She sat down next to Keanu. Jacob's data. Her story. There were right there in the room. Landon stood frozen. Until Keanu looked up and said, without smiling, "This seat's taken." The boardroom was sleek and cold. Mahogany table. Water in glass carafes. Walls lined with charts no one read. Mira stood near the projector screen, hands steady, heart calm. She glanced at Keanu. He gave her a single nod. Not go ahead, but you're already ready. She began. This isn't just a market shift. It's a mindset shift. She clicked the remote. Behind her, a slide lit up. Community Strategy Index, pilot results. Retention up 22%. Referrals up 41%. But more than that, clients feel seen. She pointed to a quote on the slide from a small cafe owner. This is the first time a firm asked about our story, not just our books. Halfway through, a board member, Mr. Hargrove, stiff suit, silver pen, interrupted. But how scalable is sentiment? How do we know this isn't just emotional branding? Mira didn't flinch. She walked to the head of the table and looked him directly in the eye. Because we built this strategy on more than sentiment. We built it on listening. She held up a folder. Inside are 37 first-hand interviews. Real clients. Real data. Their problems. Their words. She paused. Not once did we guess what they needed. We asked. A silence spread, not uncomfortable but convicted. She looked around the room. This company's been speaking for people who never got a seat at the table. But we don't speak for them anymore. We speak with them. Even Landon couldn't argue with that. Because the numbers didn't just back her up. The truth did. Carruthers closed the folder slowly. Well, he said, I'd say it's time we let the future run a little louder than the past. Keanu leaned back, smiling faintly. Because the woman they once tried to shut down was now rewriting the script. The elevator doors slid shut. Just Mira and Landon Voss. For the first time in weeks, alone in the same space. No boardroom. No witnesses. Just humming silence and 60 seconds of glass reflection and truth. Landon cleared his throat, shifting in his tailored jacket. Impressive performance in there. Mira didn't respond. He tried again. You've clearly got their attention now. Smart play, bringing in a name like him. His tone was clipped. Bitter. Measured. Mira turned to him slowly. I didn't bring him in. I earned my way in. He just made sure you couldn't shut the door. Landon's jaw flexed. You know, he said, voice lower now, there was a time I was just like you. Hungry. Idealistic. Mira tilted her head. What happened? I realized it's easier to win when you stop caring what people think. She nodded. That's where we're different. He raised an eyebrow. Oh. She stepped closer. Not angry. Not smug. Just clear. I don't care what people think. But I care what they feel. Landon looked away. I never meant to. Mira interrupted, calm as ice. I don't need an apology. I don't need you to like me. I just need you to know. You don't get to shrink people anymore. Not here. The elevator opened. Mira stepped out. But just before the doors closed behind her, she looked back and added, You used to be like me? Try being like me again. Landon stood alone, the hum of the lift climbing higher, but for the first time, he didn't feel taller. Mira stood in front of a small group of interns in the open-plan training room, the same one she sat in just a year ago, invisible behind a free coffee cart and a clipboard full of menial tasks. Today, they listened. All of them. And one in particular, a nervous, soft-spoken girl named Elena, reminded Mira a little too much of herself. Elena raised her hand. Ms. Das, how do you handle it when someone in the room doesn't think you belong? Mira smiled. Not out of comfort, but understanding. I used to try to change their minds, she said. To shrink. To fit. She walked toward the window, gesturing out over the city. But then I realized, they don't own the room. You do, the second you stop asking for permission. The room was silent. Elena scribbled something down, blinking fast like her eyes might betray her. Mira walked over, crouched slightly beside her desk, and added, You don't have to become someone else to matter here. You just have to become someone you believe in. Later that day, Elena would tape that line inside her locker. Just like Mira once taped a forward note beneath her keyboard. They don't define you. Meanwhile, upstairs in a quiet lounge overlooking the skyline, Keanu Reeves stood with Carruthers. She's changing things, Carruthers said, sipping tea. Keanu nodded. That's what happens when you build instead of break. Carruthers raised an eyebrow. You always pick the ones no one sees coming. Keanu smiled faintly. I don't pick them. I just stand still long enough to see them. Downstairs, Mira walked past the corner where she once broke down. The same stairwell. She paused for a moment, opened her sketchbook, and scribbled a single line at the top of a blank page. Be the person you needed, and the one they never saw coming. It was late. The office buzz had quieted, and most desks sat empty, screens dark, chairs turned, ghosts of urgency left behind for the night. But Mira stayed. Not out of obligation. Out of gratitude. She walked the halls slowly, like tracing memories. Past the copy machine where she once overheard Landon mocking her resume. Past the intern board where Jacob's name now sat under Data Lead. And finally, to the stairwell. She opened the door quietly. Stepped inside. The concrete steps looked the same. Same crack near the bottom. Same hum of city traffic below. She sat where she had once collapsed. Right where she had nearly given up. And where someone once asked her a question that changed everything. Why did you start doing this in the first place? From her coat pocket, she pulled out a folded piece of paper. The edges were worn now. Soft from handling. Read too many times. They don't define you. She'd kept it all this time. Now she unfolded it. Turned it over. And on the back, in her own handwriting, she wrote, You matter. Even if no one says it yet. Don't leave, you're not done here. She slid it gently under the stair rail. Tucked into the crack in the wall. Then stood. And left the door open as she walked away. Down the hall, Keanu leaned against the window, watching the skyline. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't need to. He just watched Mira walk into the elevator. Confident. Quiet. Certain. And then finally thought. But not really. Because when someone leaves the door open, someone else always walks through. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had someone stand beside you when you were ready to walk away? Tell us your story in the comments. You never know who it might help.